53 podcast. Just finished running backs. Now we're going to tight ends. This is the same night. We are recording 2 podcasts in one night. That's how this happens. This is Friday, August 6th. We got Jason, Luke. We're doing top 20 tight ends. It's our favorite position. Can't wait to break it down with you. I would say that this is the most unanimous top 5, at least top 4, that we've probably ever seen in fantasy football. I haven't really seen much different when we're looking at professional analysts and whatnot. But I'll let you get it started, Jason, because I know this is your guy, so I'm going to let you take it away with our first of the top 20 tight ends, and break down the tight end position a little bit if you want to. Like, I know we're jumping right into it.
No, that's all good, man. I mean, we're talking tight ends. We're talking PPR. We'll talk tiers like we've been talking. I think this guy is in a tier of his own, and it's Travis Kelce. Shocker to all, obviously. I mean, he finished last year with over 100 catches. And anytime you got a tight end doing that, that's nuts. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And obviously, we're progressing in a league to where that's going to happen more. Maybe you get 2 guys, which we did last year, or maybe you get 3 guys or 5 guys. And to say 5 guys with 5 tight ends with 100 catches in a year, that I don't know if we're going to see that this decade. But, Kelsey's the guy, barring injury. There's no reason why he's not tight end 1.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's the first player ever to lead his position in fantasy points for 4 consecutive seasons.
Which is nuts.
So the crazy thing is, like, the law of, I guess you would call it Murphy's Law. Like, something has to eventually go wrong, right? But are you willing to take that gamble? Like, that's why I steer away from Kelce every year. I'm like, there's no way he can do that again, is it? And then he does. There's no way he can do it again. And then he does. So, yeah, 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, like, insane. Travis Kelce's going to do it again. He's just so reliable over the middle. And then can run after the catch. He just gets so open in zones. Mahomes just has a knack of finding him. But this second guy just very clearly does not get enough love around the league, and I think it's just the team that he plays on, and that could be changing now that there's going to be fans in their stadium. But Darren Waller is a bona fide stud, Jason, and I think he's a unanimous number 2 when you're looking at the tight end position.
No question, especially in PPR. He literally had 2 more catches than the guy we were just hyping up, Travis Kelce. He had 107. He went for about 200 yards less and 2 touchdowns less. But even then, that's a normal discrepancy from a 1 to a 2. And last year was the year where everyone was freaking out. All right, we got our 1, we got our 2, we got Kelce, we got Kittle, and then all the other tight ends suck. And, I think we're going to see a similar drop-off this year after about 4 or 5. But the number 2 pick had more catches than the number 1 at tight end position. So I think he's primed to keep going. I don't think there's anything going to slow him down this year, barring injury. And I think we're going to be pretty consistent with our 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I'm really comfortable with Darren Waller here. And the crazy thing is, like, when you're looking at dollars in a $200 auction league, Darren Waller is going to save you like $5 in your pocket from Travis Kelce and might outperform him. Like, that's a very big possibility that Darren Waller is on a trajectory to outperform Kelce. Kelce could still put up the numbers he put up and not perform as well, which is crazy.
Well, what's the dollar value for those $200 league guys that you see Kelce and Waller going for?
Well, I haven't really looked into numbers quite yet, but if I'm looking at Kelce and I relate 300 fantasy points to a wide receiver with 300 fantasy points, that's mid-30s to $40 range. And that's where I see him. But Darren Waller's in a different scenario because he doesn't have the name recognition Kelce has. So he doesn't get compared to those top wide receivers. And that's why I think you're saving $5 to $7 where you could take Waller mid-20s to $30, and I think you're saving a lot of money. That's a dude who could very easily score 300 fantasy points if healthy, double-digit touchdown type of guy, and you're getting him for, I would say, like a $10 deal. Like the numbers he's putting up is DeAndre Hopkins numbers, and Hopkins
Right.
goes for what, 50?
Right.
So it's
$10 is
pretty
huge
crazy.
in a $200 league too.
Yeah, so I think like it's crazy to think the number two guy has good value, but I think he currently has really good value because people are either going to go for Kelce right away. Kittle's coming back after a really rough season with injuries, and Waller just kind of gets left unappreciated after having 100 catches last year. So I think it's a huge value buy. He plays with Derek Carr, who's very consistent as far as completion percentage. So you got to love that for your tight end too.
For sure. Little tidbit: 64.5% of his catches went for a first down last year.
That's pretty dope. I mean, that means
That's
he's moving
the
the chains.
dopest.
Well, talk about dope. George Kittle's a pretty dope dude. We know the ability that he has on the field. Whenever he's on the field, the unfortunate thing is he was banged up multiple times last year. It was just in and out, in and out. But that being said, when he's in, he's the playmaker. He's the guy to look to. They do have young receivers on the team that I really like. Ayuk is coming on strong. Debo is awesome. But I think Kittle's still the number one option there. And he should go 3 here. And then I think after 3, there is a little bit of a drop off.
Oh, for sure. I think Kelsey's his own tier. Waller and Kittle are their second tier, and we're already into third tier at pick 4, in my opinion. Looking at our notes, we both have Mark Andrews of Baltimore. Do you think that's something you're going to consistently stick with here?
You know what? I like Mark Andrews here because I think last year was a fluke year for Mark Andrews. I think there wasn't enough talent at the wide receiver position to help Mark Andrews out. And there was way too much of a focus on defenses of stopping him, and it really like crippled this Ravens offense. They bring in Bateman, they bring in Sammy Watkins. I think that opens up the middle for Mark Andrews, and he becomes the player he was 2 years ago in the fantasy respect. And so I do like him at 4.
Me too. I think after this is where it gets a little weird for us, which it will for just about everybody because I think we're now in the no man's land of Andrews has done it before, but now we're talking Tanyan, Thomas, Goddard, Pitts, Hawkinson. Like we're these are guys that we know the names of.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys that came up last year pretty good. Where are you going with 5?
Jason, with my tight end position, I like to draft the guy who I know can score touchdowns because
Sure.
I think catches are very unpredictable in your second half tight ends. So when I look at this list, I want the guy who can score the touchdowns, and that to me is Robert Tonyan. Basically because Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball, but the dude can play, and he's an athlete. Like he's a legit athlete. He's just not another body, and Aaron Rodgers is finding him in the end zone. He's moving the sticks and playing really well, and scoring some deep touchdowns. So I think Tanyan's first year or like first explosive year with Aaron Rodgers was last year. So maybe we're just seeing the beginning of what he can do in this offense. So I like him at 5.
I like him. I actually have him at 6 with Pitts at 5. The one thing about Tanyan, I think to your point, is the same information is that last year all he did was score touchdowns. He was very touchdown reliant, which has me just a little bit hesitant for the 5th slot there. But now that the Aaron Rodgers thing has kind of sort of worked itself out, we know he's playing, but where's his head at? I feel confident with Tanyan at 5 a little bit more than I did a week ago.
Yeah, and I agree, and I know you like Pitts at 5. My rebuttal to Pitts that early is the touchdown thing. Sure, Pitts
Sure.
might be able to get 60 catches, maybe even 1,000 yards on those 60 catches, but we've seen, specifically with the Atlanta Falcons, them having major issues scoring in the red zone. That's why they brought in. Todd Gurley to help with scoring in the red zone. Julio Jones is notorious for not scoring in the red zone. And I think Michael Pitts, they bring him in to score in the red zone, but I think it's a culture issue and not a personnel issue. And that's what
Interesting.
worries me there. Like, I just don't think he's going to get opportunities to score more than 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't scored in the red zone since Freeman was there and since Tony Gonzalez was there. So I guess my thing is with Julio Jones gone, I think just volume, not even touchdowns, but just volume for a guy like this, you're going to get closer to those Jimmy Graham slot tight end numbers. Maybe not with touchdowns, but with targets and touches than you would normally see.
Well, I
That's
think
that's what my logic is. It's going to happen. No, I know you're kind of buy low on Ryan if buying at all, but I don't. I think Matt Ryan still got some time under him.
well, I think you're totally right with like him having the opportunity to come in and be the number two option there. Calvin Ridley, very obviously, is going to be the number one option. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver, arguably top five fantasy guy this year, due to what he's lining up with. But my one argument to Kyle Pitts right now is actually just one guy I think that should go in front of him, and that's Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is an athletic freak. He finally got a quarterback that he can rely on and who likes tight ends in Ryan Fitzpatrick. And Logan Thomas can play, man. So looking at what he did last year, really coming in as a huge question mark to start the year. He was targeted over 100 times, had like 70 catches, really moved the ball down the field. I like Logan Thomas at 6.
I'm with that because I have him at my next pick, so I'm cool with that. I went Pitts at 5, Tanyan at 6, Thomas at 7. So if we do that, I'm cool with putting Pitts at 7, Tanyan and Thomas 5 and 6.
All right,
Unless you want to talk about Pitts a little bit later.
no, we'll put Pitts at 7. I like Pitts at 7. Um, to be honest, well, let's get into the personals on Pitts. To be honest, I'm not prepared to draft a rookie tight end just because the track record says don't draft rookie tight ends. Like it just says that, and I'm okay with being wrong in this scenario, knowing that Kyle Pitts, in my heart of hearts, Kyle Pitts isn't going to outperform the top four guys. So that's fine with me. If I was going to draft somebody who is boom or bust, you don't know what he's going to get from him, I would want him to at least be able to break into the top percentage. And within this position, I don't think he'll be able to do that. So I'd rather have one of the top five guys and not take a flyer on Kyle Pitts.
Oh, for sure. So let's take this. I mean, that's the logic is there. So let's put this in context a little bit as it goes to like our auction draft. I mean, I think we're looking at Kelce in that $40 to $50 range. Waller and Kittle are going to be that $30 to $40 range. And after that, it's going to drop off. I mean, Andrews, I think you're paying mid-20s maybe. 30 if you're super desperate. But like after that, I mean, Pitts, Tanyan, Thomas, I don't think you're paying up to $20 on those guys. So for a less than $20 investment, I mean, to me, I see the upside more than what you're about. But I do see, I mean, those who went and got Hawkinson in his first year obviously didn't reap the benefits on the high that could have been. There's a couple other guys on this as we get further down to get excited about. But as far as their rookie seasons that didn't pan out, so I see that. But I mean, where do you see, the Tanya and Thomas Pitts come in dollar value wise? Because I don't see it higher than 20 for sure, and I'd be comfortable with it. Even if it was $10, I'd be fine with it. $10 or less.
I think as tight ends go is very much $10 or less. Like the second you get out of the top three, I think everything from there is. Mark Andrews is $12. Tanyan's 10. Logan's 8. Kyle Pitts actually, just because he's a rookie and is a cool name and is the best tight end prospect we've ever seen, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He will probably skyrocket because there's dudes in every league who are like, I need him on my team type of guys. So I could see him going for $20.
Sure.
So be wary of that when you're drafting. But realistically, the 7 tight ends should go for 8 or less. 7, 6, 5.
See, no, we're in a similar thought there because I'm thinking anything after like 6, we're talking under $10, and therefore it's the guy that you want. But you're probably going to have a second tight end in your roster, or you're probably planning on streaming at that point if you're going to spend less than $5.
Well, that's the thing, Jason. Is like if they're not going to stand out and not going to have like a breakthrough year that we want them to have, like a guy that we're going to talk about eventually, Noah Fant, like I think we just keep keep waiting for a breakout to happen is just not going to happen.
You
And
know,
then so
shitty
like,
quarterback, terrible team. Quarterback got hurt. Talent's there, but
and so you
maybe when
just like,
it happens.
so you just like sit and wait, and you paid an extra 3, 4, $5, great, but like, for what? When you could have got a dollar guy, and Rob Gronkowski might go for $1 this year, Jason. And you know he's not gonna have 100-yard games. He's not gonna have eight catch games, but he is gonna catch 3 balls a game and score every other game.
Right?
And you're fine with that if it's $1. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think we should get into 8. 8 is
Sure.
still a number 1 tight end on your team. I think there are some reliable guys still on the board, but I'm going to ask you, who do you feel at 8?
Personally, I'm between Hawkinson and Goddard. I don't have an affinity. I hate rooting for the Lions. I had Goddard last year and he was hurt, so that was tough to get excited about. You relied on him, and he didn't really because he was coming back hurt. But I think the potential's there. I think both of them have really good matchups. I worry about Goddard's quarterback compared to Hawkinson's, even though like Goff versus Hurts, like pretty average in my mind to the two of those. Do you have a preference between the two, or do you have a name I'm not mentioning?
Yeah, I do, and these are the two guys I'm looking at too. And Gesicki, you can throw him in there, and there's my guy Irv Smith, who I think should be in this conversation. But I think Dallas Goedert is a little bit higher than the ones that we're talking about for a couple reasons. I think he's the most athletic out of all of them. Gesicki
Sure.
might play with him too, and that plays. I think he's the number 1 option coming into the season, and traditionally used the trope that everybody uses. I know, but young quarterbacks rely on tight ends. The Eagles' offense has been built on tight ends for the last 10 years, and I think
2 of them.
yeah, so I think that's going to continue. I know Zach Ertz is a huge question mark. Sounds like he's not going to play with the Eagles. Trade possibilities there. Maybe we talk about grabbing him as your last pick overall, just to stash if he makes it on a good team. So I like Dallas Goedert for that reason, but he's been banged up in and out a ton too. So it's really a toss-up for me. Hawkinson, let's talk about him for a minute. Jared Goff, I thought, had great tight ends the last 3 years for the Rams, but they never put up huge numbers. So I don't know if that was a Goff thing or a scheme thing. They also had really good wide receivers there, so maybe you
Would say a
can't blame
scheme.
them. So I would like Goddard here, I think.
Let's do it.
And I'm thinking you're gonna want T.J. Hawkinson here at 9.
For sure.
Is that something that you would look at drafting T.J. Hawkinson at 9? I feel like somebody who drafts T.J. Hawkinson at 9 is just like falling on that pick. Like, there's nothing sexy about Hawkinson at 9. Or am I wrong? I could be
Well,
wrong.
I mean, if there's a run of tight ends and you're out of tight ends and a snake, then yeah, you take the best guy you can, because you're probably between him, you might be on the border of having to stream tight ends at that point, whoever is best matchup that week. Because to me, we're kind of going into we've got all the good to okay tight ends, and now we're going into the boomer buster, like needs to have a good game tight end. So I think he's the last of like the startable every week tight ends, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons for a lot of these other guys. So I don't know.
No, I think that's very fair, and I think in that spot, if you're not getting Kelce Waller, actually, if you're not getting Kelce or Waller, I don't think the rest of them are worth it. Just wait until the end. Like, the difference between a tight end who scores 128 fantasy points in the year and 180 fantasy points in the year is like 2 points a week. Is it worth an extra $10 in your draft? Is it worth drafting 5 or 6 rounds higher? I don't really think so. I don't think this is the position where you spend the money on getting a guy unless you get one of the top 2. And that's how I feel.
And you're not wrong, and most guys don't do that kind of analytics. Obviously, we're in a different boat. We get to have a little more fun with the numbers because we're talking dollars and cents. We're not talking ADP. I mean, ADP, that's a crapshoot. With ours, I mean, you have no control over who wants what, but you
Yeah.
do have a control over your strategy as far as the dollars you're willing to allocate. So I think that really plays strongly into what we're planning for.
Yeah, Jason, let me ask you a question about ADP, and I know we don't play it that much, but I think this question was asked last year to people, at least in their heads, and I'm going to pose it to you this year in a standard snake draft. Would you draft Kelce in the first round?
No.
No.
I would if I was the last pick or
Yeah.
the second to last pick, maybe,
Let's.
maybe.
What if you're
It
12?
depends on who's still out there, what I want my structure to be, and who I know in the league.
Well, I know, but like, what if you're the 12th pick in the last draft? So you get 12 and 13. So you get Kelce and then a running back, say.
Well, then I would draft the running back first, just to say I didn't take a tight end in the first round.
Whatever.
I'm just saying that's who I. Not even because you asked this question. That's where I would be on it.
Well, I think the idea is like Travis Kelce outperformed every wide receiver last year, but three.
True.
So if you look at the numbers, say 8 running backs get taken, 3 wide receivers get taken, 1 tight end gets taken. That's 12.
Which definitely talks to our evolving league there. Holy cow. And as I'm looking at the stats now, he had 1,400 yards, right? 11 touchdowns. 75%, over 75% of his catches were for first downs.
There you go.
That's not fantasy. That's just sweet.
Well,
On 105 balls. That means 75, almost 80 of his balls were first down balls. Wow.
well, as you look at it, Jason, it's man, it's just hard not to think that sets your team apart. I really do think that. Like you're getting wide receiver 1 value out of your tight end every single week. And I know that's your play. You've been diving into the Kelce lottery for the past couple of years, and it's paid off in some respects. And then you got to fight flex. Like if you're spending a lot of money on your tight end, you gotta you lose a flex spot. You really do. You're streaming your flex because you spent $30 on a tight end or 50. Right. I think Kelce could very easily go for 50. So that's how you play with your roster. You have to understand that. Oh, now I'm streaming a guy like J.D. McKissick on week 3. You know, but you're comfortable with that because you have 2 bona fide wide receivers and Kelce on your team.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, last year I don't think I played that lottery, but the previous before I've done it, and it's paid off. I've been in the playoffs. I've been deep in the playoffs. I'd be curious to see. I would venture to say, this is a guess and a feeling, gut feeling, that Travis Kelce and Darren Waller were on a high percentage of championship winning teams last year. Because that's a level of consistency you don't get. And I got to imagine that the margin for error in your streaming variation is a whole lot greater than what you'd see in a running back, because you can get a lot luckier with the fact that there are so many more running backs or so many more receivers that all you really need out of your flex, 10 points, 12 points in a PPR. I feel like that's a lot easier to come by unless you're really you catch a tight end on a touchdown heavy, week. I feel like that's where you're at.
Right. No, and I think that makes sense. And we'll eventually get back to our list. We're looking at 10.
Right.
But no, I'm with you there. I think let's get back to the list now. And
let's jump in. Yeah, so number 10, I know you're probably going to push me for your guy in Minnesota, Irv Smith, which would be the last starting tight end in our league. And if it's a 12-man league, that means you've got him and 2 others. We would need to decide who's going to be the starting tight ends on some people's rosters.
Yeah, well, I'm going to push for Irv to be one of the top 12. And if this is the appropriate time to do it, I'll give you my pitch. He caught 45 balls last year in 13 games, 5 touchdowns as the backup tight end. He wasn't even the primary tight end. He actually was getting outsnapped by Rudolph on at least a 2-to-1 clip. Rudolph is gone. We do have Tyler Conklin there, who I think is a pretty good tight end. But Irv has proved to be productive in the slot as well, so he can line up outside and then as an inline tight end. So I think Irv has the best opportunity and is on the best offense of the remaining ones. And that's why I like him more than, say, a Gesicki, than a Jonnu Smith, than a Higbee for those reasons. That's convincing.
I give him a 10 because I like Gesicki a lot. I think he's a freak. He's got all the talent, but the offense does not support him whatsoever. And they just drafted another receiver. So I'm Smith here.
I love it. And he wears number 84. I didn't even have to bring that out.
There you go. So for 11, in a 10-man, it's your first guy off the bench. In a 12-man, it's the second to last. I'm stuck personally between Gesicki and Higbee because I really feel like Stafford hasn't had great tight ends. I know we could say the Hawkinson thing, but Higbee, when he was targeted, he played really well in that system that does not promote tight end play. If the Rams are going to be under gun more, which is going to be Mahomes, I don't know why I just said Mahomes, Stafford's bread and butter, you're gonna see more opportunity there in LA because I don't think a lot of these guys like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, they're not seam guys. Cooper Kupp's a slot guy, but he works on being shifty, not that big body over the middle or in the red zone. So I think right now we've hit the boomer bust spot for the next 5 picks, in my opinion. Looking at some of these names here, where are you at with those 2 guys or a third guy I didn't mention?
Yeah, I think you're talking about 2 guys that I really like. I do like Gesicki, and I do like Higbee. I err on, dude, it's tough because I think Gesicki makes the most sense, but then again, they bring in Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle. Tua is very much a question mark, so that worries me. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. So what that means for me is maybe I look at a Higbee. But if I'm looking at Higbee, there's mouths to feed there for the Rams as well. Because the Rams, like you said, but they also have Deshaun Jackson.
Everybody forgets that this year. For sure. Good point.
So
I mean, let's do it. Let's put Higbee at 11 and put Gesicki at 12. Gesicki kind of bent me last year because he would only get 2 or 3 targets a game, and they'd be a touchdown and a 50-yarder. But you can't rely on that. I think Higbee's got a chance to be more consistent. You're 4 for 50. You're 5 for 40.
And Everett's gone. Everett vacates, 50 targets?
About. I think it was just under that, but yeah.
So 62 targets, 41 catches. So
41 catches.
There's some production out of the tight end spot that's vacated as well. So, and I think the 53 podcast is probably the biggest Tyler Higbee fans out of any other syndication out there. So
the rest of the league,
we'll take it.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee for president. So we got Higbee 11, Gesicki 12. And quite honestly, I think this is the top 12 tight ends. You can mix and match them how you want to see them, but if this is a 12-man league, I would say that these are the guys that should be starting, at least week 1.
Sure.
Who are you looking for outside of this? And it is rare that you would see double tight ends or 2 tight ends drafted, but it happens, and I think it's valuable to see where these guys land. So who are you kind of excited for in this back half?
Well, that's an odd phrase. I don't think I'm excited for anybody.
No,
but if
I think there's exciting guys here though, Jace.
They're exciting guys, but it doesn't mean I'm excited. I would stir the bucket over here. I would say Jared Cook.
Yeah, dude.
He played 2 years ago. He played at Oakland, tore it up. Last year he was in New Orleans, had a great season. Not elite, but solid. Inconsistent as far as week to week, but solid year-end numbers. And now you go to Herbert. He lost Hunter Henry. He's got another tight end. Henry was not highlighted, but I mean, this guy has been known to perform. So I think, especially on a 1-year deal, the previous years going to where he was, or maybe it was 2 years in New Orleans. I don't know. But short time, new offense, decent quarterback produced.
Yeah, I'm cool with Cook there. I think he's a little bit of an old head, and I don't really like drafting old players. Maybe I'm biased, but now that I'm 30, maybe I should be drafting older players.
Ew.
I like Jonnu Smith here. I put Jared Cook in at 13. I'm cool with that. I think there's very much potential for him to score touchdowns. He was a touchdown-heavy guy in New Orleans, scored 7 last year. Jonnu Smith is a speedster and is exactly what this Patriots offense needs. I like Jonnu Smith at 14. I think if you were going to take 2 tight ends, he's definitely a guy to take and stash that because you just don't know. It's a big question mark. Like, what is he going to look like in this offense? So I like him and the potential that he brings. Whether it's Cam or not, I think Cam could play well with him. I think the new kid could play. Mac Jones could play well with him. So let me take Jonnu Smith at 14.
Well, what if I said that Hunter Henry was the tight end?
I don't think so, bro. I don't feel it. I mean, he could be.
I feel like, to me, Hunter Henry is the more traditional Y, and Jonnu is the other guy. He's your flex guy. Yeah. Which,
and the flex guy.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't know. Cam Newton hasn't used a tight end since Greg Olsen, and he was he was receiving tight, but he was more traditional. Yeah, I'm cool with it. I know Jonnu produced, and he doesn't have to be the focal point in that offense.
And Jonnu can score 70-yard touchdowns.
That's true, he can.
Hunter Henry ain't busting out no 70-yard touchdown. Jonnu can run the ball too. They hand the ball off to him in Nashville. I swear to God.
I think I missed that. Sweet.
At the stats.
All right, so we're at where are we at?
2 rushes, 4 yards, and a touchdown. There you go. I remember that. They did a little end around.
Actually, I do, because I was waiting on a Derrick Henry touchdown there, and I was like, who the fuck ran this in? Oh, wait. No, that's got to be a typo. It's going to correct to a receiving. No, it was a rush. I remember that. All right, so 15. We've got 6 more to go. I don't really know who I'm thinking here. I can tell you who I'm not thinking here. I'm not thinking Austin Hooper is going to be here, or hell, I don't even know if Austin Hooper is going to make my list.
Really? I think Austin Hooper, he was just in his first year in Cleveland.
Not to say he's not talented, but it's still him and Njoku. You're still running the ball with Kareem Hunt and Chubb. You still got Landry and OBJ to feed, and whoever their slot guy of the week is.
Well, I like Rob Gronkowski here.
I don't. That's another guy. I don't even want to put him on the list.
You're not putting Gronk on the list. He scored 2 touchdowns in his last game. Which happened to
be OJ's coming back. And Brait.
It happened to be the Super Bowl.
Right. He only shows up in the playoffs. Fantasy football doesn't play in the playoffs.
I mean, Gronk put up numbers, though, bro.
Did he, though?
Gronk put up numbers, bro. 45, 600 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's better than Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry, Eric Ebron, Evan Ingram. We haven't talked about Evan Ingram yet.
We haven't talked about Evan Ingram. That's a guy, maybe. I don't think he's going to be the guy. You were talking off pod between our intermission there. I think maybe we talk about the guy in Seattle, Gerald Everett.
I like Gerald Everett, bro.
He's talented.
I'm very comfortable putting Gerald Everett in here.
Yeah, I think that's where my gut's telling me because I'm not feeling some of these other guys.
I mean, Gerald Everett, let's talk about it for a second. I think, and I think you're on the same wavelength, is that the Rams were sitting on a gold mine of offensive players, and they just didn't have the quarterback to get the guys the ball. And Gerald Everett's one of those dudes. He would line up outside and ball. And
right.
And really enjoyed it. He had like 45 catches last year and a touchdown. He was very underutilized. He's a smaller guy for a tight end, very much a route running receiving tight end. And I think he would fit really well with Russell Wilson, who, even when he has mediocre tight ends like Jake Hollister for a while there,
Sure.
gets them to score touchdowns. And I think he fits great. I would say that might be a guy that I'm worth taking $1 on and not taking anybody ahead of him. All those guys can go ahead of him. I'll take him for $1. If it doesn't work out the first 3 weeks of the season, you know what? It's fine. I'll go stream another guy.
I think at this point in 15 territory, I mean, not everybody's drafting 2 tight ends. I think that's reasonable.
All right, should we go 16?
Let's go 16. We got what? 1, 2, 3, 5 more to fill. I think we've still got 15 more starting tight ends in this league. So what do you think? We got some names out here. Let me just name drop, see what sparks you. We got Austin Hooper, Rob Gronkowski, Hunter Henry still on the board, Eric Ebron in Pittsburgh, Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, Adam Troutman, Zach Ertz, question mark. Fersker for the Tennessee Titans, Dawson Knox in Buffalo, Dalton Schultz in Dallas. Your boy Sample out in Cincy, Hayden Hurst in ATL as a number 2 tight end who didn't produce a whole lot.
Well, I think Austin Hooper makes a lot of sense. I think Rob Gronkowski makes a lot of sense. Ebron is weird to me because
I want Ebron to work, but he just won't.
Well, he scored, 17 touchdowns with Andrew Luck when he went there. And then he goes to Pittsburgh. I'm like, oh, dude, Ben Roethlisberger loves big tight ends. All right, let's see it. And he actually played well, though. He had 60 catches, which is a lot for a tight end.
You got 4 wide receivers.
But he just didn't score any touchdowns.
Right. You got Claypool, Juju, Washington, and Deontay Johnson. You got Najee Harris. And then you got Ebron. I mean, there's so many guys. And they had Dree Archer last year and another Benny Snell. A lot of guys that got more touches, Benny
Snell. Yeah.
But I'm just worried about ball distribution.
You want Hunter.
So then you got the 2. You got Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham. You got Adam Troutman, who's going to be catching from Jameis Winston this year down in New Orleans. Zach Ertz, man. Is that a guy you just stash as a flyer anyway?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about it, dude, I think Zach Ertz would be fun to take in your draft if he still hasn't decided where he's going. But let's go dive into Chicago real quick. You're a Chicago fan, and this kind of excites me. Jimmy Graham scored 8 touchdowns for you guys last year.
Yep.
Jimmy Graham was a pivotal player in your offense, and I think people don't quite understand that. He produced at a top 20 clip for a tight end, so it makes sense to put him in the top 20. But you also have Cole Kmet there, who might just take the reins over. So how do you see those balancing? Would you even consider drafting either one of those guys?
If I was to consider one, it wouldn't be as my starter. I would consider drafting Kmet first because it looks like they're trying to enhance his role. And I got a feeling as Jimmy Graham gets older, he's going to be a red zone only.
Yeah, that's fair.
Kmet's going to block better for you, especially between the 20s. But Jimmy Graham's going to be a red zone guy for sure. I think they're both going to get usage, which is going to make it frustrating. But I think by the end of the year, I mean, you think about the last 5-6 games, Kmet was really used more instead of 1 or 2 catches, getting 4 or 5 a game.
Yeah.
And Graham kind of fell off. I think you're going to see that even more this year. Second half of the year, it's going to be all Kmet because that's the last year of Jimmy Graham's contract.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So I think if you're going to take one, you take Kmet. I think, he could be a flyer as your second tight end if you wanted a second tight end this year.
You still got to take Hooper before him, though, right?
I don't feel good about that because what if they just all of a sudden get a hard-on for Njoku? I don't think it matters much because their focus isn't the tight end in that offense.
All right.
Because they even think about Stefanski. Stefanski didn't use him much.
Cole Kmet at 16.
Fair enough.
I'm almost wanting to put Troutman at 17.
I'm thinking like Troutman, Sample, and Schultz.
You do like Sample for sure.
I mean, you could put Gronk in there because that makes sense, but you might. I mean, hell, if you're going to take in flyers at this point, take Hunter Henry. If you think Jonu's the guy and someone gets hurt, I mean, you got a team that uses the tight end. I think we just rounded off our list by elimination.
I'm just filling these up right now, and I think
for flyer, you got Ertz, you can do Schultz, or you can do Sample. I think those are three good ones for if it's the last pick. I think you set yourself up decently.
No, I got to put Hooper there. I'm not going to let you bully me out of putting Hooper here. And I'll give you some reasoning. The team actually can move the damn ball, and he is, I think, a vital part in that. I like Dawson Knox. I get the Dawson Knox play a little bit. We didn't talk about Noah Fant at all, and I think that's probably a bad idea. We should probably get him in there.
Yeah, you should probably, if you're going to do something with that, I would replace Troutman or Komet with Fant.
The crazy thing, dude, is that Fant performed top 10 last year. He had 62 catches, 673, and 3 touchdowns. He gets a better quarterback, and he's a dude that we should probably be looking at like Jared Cook.
But you also get Sutton back, so you got another target taking targets. You get Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on the outside, and then the slot guy that they drafted that same year as Jeudy, whose name escapes me.
Well, I'm just gonna insert cell and put.
It wasn't Rager, but it was the guy
there.
Is it a TCU guy? No, it was. Who the heck was he? Hamler.
They drafted
KJ Hamler, Arizona State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There you go.
2 wide receivers in that draft.
First and second round too, I think.
Font's a dude that I just.
All right, so let's talk about this. We've got 1 through 10.
I feel good about 1 through 10. I now see that Irv doesn't make a whole lot of sense to some people.
Yeah, because we forgot about Fant. Irv doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, yeah, Fant should probably be 10.
Yep.
Let's be honest. Fant should probably be like right 11. He should.
Okay. I think we should drop Irv, but I'm not going into a late pod argument there.
I'm so excited to get validation when Irv is a top 10 tight end.
Fuck it. Why don't you just call him top 5?
Well, it could happen, Jason. You know what?
Could also be a bottom 20.
You know what? He could be a bottom 20 guy. You know what? He could be. He very well could be, but he's not gonna be. All right.
So let's talk about this.
Fix the list.
18. You've got Troutman. Do you really want Troutman on this list over Hooper? I don't. I want Troutman over Hooper for sure, but is that what you want?
Yeah, I would rather take a risk in Troutman for sure. Like, what else is there? There's nothing else there.
Nothing. Right. Okay. So we're speaking the same language.
Traquan Smith.
And I would give you a big who dat?
Yeah, exactly, dude. They don't have anything in New Orleans, and they're gonna produce. It's Sean Payton. Like, he's gonna find ways to produce, and he's gonna find ways to use his new toy. That didn't really get many opportunities last year. I think that's going to change this year. So, yeah, I do like Adam Troutman.
Well, I think that's our 20. I think 1 through 3
dude,
you're really good about.
If you want to get into Troutman, I think Troutman is the guy that you take in daily fantasy and save a shit ton of cash. And you take him in daily fantasy early, those are the guys I look for when I'm doing FanDuel. is I give me a Mahomes, give me a Tyreek Hill, give me Alvin Kamara, and then I fill my back end with dudes like Troutman and hope they hit it big.
Right.
So
Which I think that's the way you got to play because you can't expect your guys that you pay big money for to put up 30 points a game.
Brian.
I dig that. Well, that's another thing too. Getting into the daily stuff, that'd be fun to talk about. So, all right, I mean, all right, I feel more confident about this list. We could Nats ass this and tweak it a little bit more, but 1 through 3 I feel good about. 4 through 8 I feel good about. 9 through 13 feels about right. 14 to the end, I think that's a lot of preference and potential. So I mean that feels and looks solid to me.
I think we're solid. I think top 10 makes a lot of sense. I know Irv maybe should be 11 instead of Fant, but I'm going to take it anyway. I think he's going to prove himself. And if you're thinking, or if I can put my personal drafting knowledge in here, I am just going to take Irv for $1. And you know what? I don't think anybody's going to push me to $2, Jason. They're going to give me Irv for $1. He's going to have 600 yards and 7 touchdowns, and I'm going to be happy with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for out of your tight end. I mean, it's insane when tight ends get 1,000 yards. Outside of those top guys, 600, 700 yards, 7 or 8 touchdowns is exactly what you're looking for. And that's what 4 through 10 is probably going to get you. So might as well get the guy who's worth $1 who can get you that.
Well, that's the thing is a lot, now guys these days are thinking, well, you should get me 90 balls and 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Like that's elite. That's Hall of Fame elite. That's not consistent. You don't have receivers putting up those numbers. But I mean, so I think the bottom, if you were to have a bottom standard, you'd want your tight end to get you about 5,505. That's not great, but it's still serviceable.
Yeah, I mean that's
anything above that, you're doing good.
Exactly. I mean, what you're looking at is roughly 10 points a week.
In a PPR.
In a PPR, 10 points a week is nice, unless you're taking Kelce or Waller. I don't think Kittle's worth it at 3. I think you're paying too much money for Kittle, in my opinion. I don't think they use him enough in the offense to make it worth it.
Well, especially coming off injury, you never know.
Yeah, and Tanyan's nice to have. I think he could be worth it if it's less than $10, though. Like, I don't want to spend that money on a tight end when I could be spending it on a receiver or a running back. I'm very much into the low quarterback, low tight end this year. That's just how it feels. I think there's enough talent to go around at those two positions that you don't need to spend the shit ton of money on these big guys to make them worth them. So that's where
well, especially given how murky 4 through 12 is realistically. I mean, if Andrews has another year like he did this last year, he's dropping on the board pretty quick.
Well,
and if Tanya doesn't score as many touchdowns as he did, what did he really do? So, I mean, a lot of ambiguity here.
Well, yeah, and
I see all that to validate your point of spending low money.
Well, you're hitting it on the head because just because a guy is on Paul Charchian's list as $7 and he's the 4th tight end, and then you got Mike Gesicki all the way down there at his 10th tight end for $1. Like, there really is no difference between the 4th and the 10th tight end, in my opinion. Like, we don't know the outcomes of those players. Is it worth 7 times more for that position?
Not usually.
That's not the case in any other position, I don't think. Quarterback sometimes you can get a guy for $1 who outperforms the guy for $7. That happens.
True.
But that's all
Did Charge come up with a cheat sheet this year?
He usually puts one out in early August. It might not be out quite yet. He puts it on his guillotine leagues now. is his thing. So it's like
Guillotine League?
guillotineleagues.com, I believe.
Well, I've
Is
heard
where
about those.
Guillotine would be fun, man. I'll do a plug for Paul Charchian's Guillotine Leagues. You get 16. Well, now it'd be 17 people in a league, and you can draft how you want. It's usually auction draft, and all it is you lose. If you were the lowest scoring team any given week, you're just guillotined, cut out of the league. So week one,
Right.
there's 17 teams who go in. They're all head-to-head against each other. If you scored the least amount of points, you're cut from the league, and then all your players go to free agency. And in that waiver wire, you have to bid to pick up their players. And that's the only way you can build your team is when teams fall apart and then waivers, obviously. And then it all the way goes up to the championship week, or maybe it's 16 weeks because buys or whatever, or not buys if they're fighting for a playoff spot, you know.
Right.
And then there'd just be two teams left, and then they fight for 100% of the profit, which is so dope. Like that'd be such a fun way to play. I think it's super cool. The shitty part is if you're only in guillotine leagues and you lose week one, then you just sit there and play FanDuel the rest of the year.
Right. Well, that's what, with the way things are going, that might be a decent supplement.
Right. But that's it, man. I think we kind of nailed it to the best of our ability. From what we know, we need to get you a tight end up on your jersey board, Chase. I'll send you my jersey.
Is it red, blue, or orange? Or orange, blue, or navy?
It is not. It is blue, but it's not navy blue.
Oh, I get a big old royal blue 89, huh?
That's right. It would kind of match the wallpaper.
Actually, you're not wrong there. That's well, you gotta earn it. You gotta earn it. So,
all right, we'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll get it framed and you can put it on the little edge.
Well, that might work because I've only got one offensive player. This old Brandon Marshall right here.
Yeah.
Otherwise I got Mac, Urlacher, and Roquan.
Yeah. So it's time to put an 89 in there, and we're not talking about the legendary 89 of Bears old. We're talking about
Ditka. That might be a sick jersey to have. But what color would I do? I'd probably have to do a blue one again, right?
A blue would be nice, Chase. Yeah, a blue Ditko would be pretty nice.
That would be pretty dope. Kind of like the sweater.
Anyway, man.
All right. Well, yep.
That has been the top 20 tight ends for fantasy football 2021. We're pretty comfortable with our list. I think maybe.
I am.
I don't know how we forgot Fant. I feel bad if you're watching.
Sorry, Noah.
Sorry,
next
buddy.
time.
We'll make you in there next time. But that's all we got, man. We will be coming out with these over the weekend, and then we'll be doing wide receivers, which I think personally is the most exciting thing to draft in fantasy because there's just so many good receivers now that you just want to make sure you get the one who's breaking out, like Stephon Diggs last year, just sitting middle of the pack in the 20s and then bursted all the way up into the top 5.
And it can literally be anyone.
You can just grab the right one and just skyrocket him to the playoffs. It's so exciting. And it happens so much more in the wide receiver position than any other position just because there's so many more opportunities for it. And young players can come in and produce right away, unlike other positions. So excited to break down wide receivers next week with you, Jace. Any last word before we call it on tight end?
No, man, it's great to get a day with 2 episodes. I'm just getting amped. I can't wait for our draft, whenever that's gonna be. I'm a broken record. Let's go football. Yay.